DS80 clutch replacement. I ran it out of gas and I also drained all the oil so I could lay it on its side. You're going to want a PH2 screwdriver for this because all of the cover bolts are PH2s. You're going to also want a ratchet set, but I really like these Bike Master. They're like 12 bucks and they have everything you need on them for lots of jobs. I'm going to use a handy dandy torque wrench so we're getting all the right torque values. And for the kit, basically these are the new plates. There's the steel plates and then the clutch plates, and I let them soak overnight in some 2-stroke oil. You're also going to need some needle nose pliers to get the clutch lever unattached. Always have some good thread locker. I'm using orange today. And also gasket remover. These plastic, any kind of plastic sharp edge that you can get, really useful for a lot of jobs, so you won't scratch up your aluminum parts or steel parts or anything. So good thing to have for a lot of jobs actually. And then I'm going to use this clutch cover gasket. Always replace the gaskets, and then always replace the springs on this. I noticed especially with mine the lever is not returning, so that's definitely gonna need some new springs. And yeah, some gloves. So we're going to use needle nose pliers to remove this pin that's holding the clutch cable to the clutch lever. So straighten out the tails and then grab the head and just pull that pin out. There you go. And then that comes right out and you're free. Now we're going to remove these 9 PH2 screws that are holding the clutch cover on, and it's going to slide over this Kickstarter. This back screw, you can't really get to it unless you also remove the clutch lever, and this is a 10mm. I'm able to get to it with a PH2 Phillips socket, and when you break it, just make sure you push down really hard at the top and make sure it's in there snug, and it'll break free. So these Phillips head engine screws strip really easily, and I definitely stripped this one. So I removed the head of it by just drilling with a 732 bit, and the head came off, and now the cover will slip off over it, and I'm going to remove that bolt with a vice grip like this one right here. And all of the bolts are different sizes for the cover, so you want to put them in order when you take them out. And if you didn't do that like I did, then you're going to have to check a parts manual or just line up the screws and make sure that the length matches up. And yeah, so I'm on my way to Ace to replace these Phillips heads with some hex heads, because that way we'll never strip them again. Now I'm going to slide my clutch engine cover off. Remember that the clutch cable is still attached right here, so when we take it off it's going to flop and be facing up like that, and it's got to slip over this kickstart, so it's very tight and it almost seems like it won't fit, but it will. Just kind of have to play with it. There we go, so it's out, and we're going to flip it over. And luckily for me, the gasket came out all in one piece, and it came out on the outside cover, so it'll be really easy for me to remove it. If it comes out on the inside cover, just remember when you take it off, you're going to want to stand the bike off so it doesn't flake off. And you can use, again, this plastic piece to scrape it off. And let's inspect the inside of the case while we have it open. Seen a lot of times where the Kickstarter gear teeth are all worn out, but this looks pretty good. Looks like a little bit of dirt got in, so I'll make sure to clean that up before I put it back together. And yeah, everything looks pretty good. And you can see that one bolt where I had to drill the head off, it just turns right out, so not a problem. Now we're going to remove the 5 bolts holding on this clutch cover, and they are 8 millimeters. So now we got our screws and springs out. We're going to remove the clutch pressure plates and the steel plates, and we want to make sure that they are in order. So I'm going to put them down in this tray right here. So here's the pressure plate, and you can see they're totally worn out. I'll show you the new ones here. You can see they have those cork pieces still intact, and these are totally worn. So clutch definitely was worn out. So here we go, putting them down in order. Just kind of stack them like that. And there's 2 more rings back here, but you can just leave them in place because these are the only ones we're replacing. So it's 4 pressure plates, and in between each of them there's 3 steel plates. Now we're gonna I just stacked them over and so I can see that they're in the same order, and we're gonna put our stack of clutch components back in. And then this cover, the screw's gonna go up into the center, and you flip it over and you put it back on. Now that our assembly is back together, I'm gonna put the bolts back on. These are 8 millimeters, and they're gonna fit over, and I'm gonna torque all of them down in a star pattern, just like if I was changing a tire. And I'm going to torque them down to about 8 foot-pounds, which on my wrench is about 80 to 90 inch-pounds, or about the better unit, 10 Newton meters. Now we're going to get ready to put the cover back on the engine, and we're going to peel off the gasket. Fortunately, mine's coming off in one piece. And there are 2 dowel pins. One pin is going to be located at the bottom left, and the other one is at the top right. So just make sure those 2 are in place. And then you're going to put your new gasket in and fit it over the Kickstarter lever. And then this knob right here, it's got to be pointed in the right direction to match up with the teeth in here, and this whole rod will just rotate as you push it on. So I just got back from the hardware store, and I'm replacing these lame Phillips heads that strip really easily with Allen key heads. You could also use the hex flange heads, but they didn't have any of those today. So there's 3 different sizes. The longest ones, there's 3 longest ones here, this upper one in front of the carburetor, and then this other upper one by the fill neck. And then there's 2 medium-sized ones. They're all on the bottom, these 2 on the bottom. And then there's 4 of the smallest size one. One here, bottom right, these 2 right here, and then the one that goes behind the clutch lever. And once you have them all on, tighten them to about 9.8 Newton meters, and then also tighten them in a crossing pattern, just so you make sure that your plate is flush. And And on each of these engine case bolts, I'm going to use 1 drop of thread locker orange. Blue works fine, but I heard the orange holds a little bit tighter. And yeah, I'm just going to put a drop right at the tip and then put it back in, tighten to 9.8 Newton meters. So all the fasteners are torqued, and you want to just check that your gasket is flush all the way around, and you'll definitely know if you did it wrong because when you put oil in it, it'll leak. So now we're going to put the kick lever on, and you want to put it on so it's not making contact with your engine cover and just barely off of it. There you go, and it'll turn out right there. And then go ahead and use some thread locker on your 10mm bolt that holds it in place. Now I'm going to put on the clutch lever, and this slit is going to point towards the front of the engine, and I'm going to rotate this until there's no play in it, so rotate it counterclockwise to get no play in it, and then put this on here so that it lines up with your cable feed. Now we're gonna get our dowel and use that to fasten the lever to the cable and put in our dowel pin. And let's go ahead and just kind of tap that in there. Alright, we got it through. And then we just take our needle nose pliers and oh, I got a piece of plastic in there. And bend it around. There you go. So I've gotten the play out of the clutch. You can see when I let it go, it fully returns. There's just a tiny little bit of play, and I like to do that because that way I know that the clutch is open when you're driving it. Otherwise, you will be riding the clutch and wearing it out. So yeah, once you have that 10mm in position where you want, tighten up your 12mm nut here, just so it's flush and it holds it in place. And then just slide your rubber covers back on. That should be ready to go.